My name is Alexina Mayumbelo Stimena, and I'm here to present on the importance of access to safe birth for mothers and babies and the use of technology. My presentation is based on the experience that I had uh, when I was volunteering as a midwife in South Sudan. It's based on a story of Zar, and that is not her real name, uh, whom I took care of during that time when I was volunteering. Um, uh, it's a tribute to that Zar because she passed away. May her soul rest in peace. Lack of access to safe birth contributes to the high maternal mortality and morbidity rates in South Sudan. Uh, this is like in the case of the story of Zar. You find that women fail to access facilities for safe birth because maybe because of the distances they have to walk to the nearest health facility, or because even if they go there, they will find unskilled birth attendants. And the use of technology can be very helpful at different stages, during the health care. I shall refer to the use of my mobile phone in this case because I used the mobile phone for communicating with Zar and also for following her up. And I shall also refer to the use of instruments, for example, delivery forceps, which were used in the case of Zara when she came to the hospital where I was. Her baby was delivered using delivery forceps. The lack of access to safe birth, especially in hard-to-reach conflict-affected areas, puts women of childbirth age at risk of dying from complications before, during, and even after childbirth. Early marriages also contribute, and here I'm even referring to the same Zar because she was married early. When she was only 13 years old when she got married, and then she conceived, and because of the tender age, when the time for delivery came, she was uh, she just stayed at home because in the hard to reach areas, women have to depend on traditional birth attendants because sometimes that's the only available option to them. So this year was unfortunately one of those girls that end up with early pregnancies, and unfortunately she was one of those that end up with complications, and that is what really moved me to take up her case and to try to help her. And some of the causes, is because of we are going to look at the three delays. There's delay in deciding to access care, and also delay in getting to where the care is, and then the delay to getting the care. Unfortunately, in South Sudan, um, quite a number of unskilled birth attendants are found in the hospitals because those are the only ones that are available. It's only now that there are nurses and midwives who are being trained, and the story may change in the future. But at the time when I was there, I was working with unskilled birth attendants, even in the hospital where I was. And usually, skilled birth attendants may not be in a position to handle complications when they arise. Complications like hemorrhage, which is the number one leading cause of maternal death, and also obstetric fistula, which is one other complication that women and young girls experience due to lack of skilled birth attendants. I've already given the example of obstetric fistula. Obstetric fistula is a condition whereby there is a whereby there is a hole that is linking the anal to the birth canal, and to the in this case it will be called the rectovaginal fistula, or linking the urethra to the birth canal, and in this case it will be called vesicovaginal fistula. In both cases, there is leakage of urine and feces, which cannot be controlled by the one who is suffering from it. This is Zara. This is not her real name. I just gave her as a nickname. This is a picture of Zara when she was admitted, the first time when she was admitted in hospital. What happened to Zara was the labor started at home, and it looks like they delayed to decide to take her to the nearest facility, which was far away from where they were. And she was attended to by an unskilled birth attendant, in this case a traditional birth attendant. And when it was clear that she was not going to deliver normally, that's when it was decided that she's taken to the nearest health facility, which was very far from the home where she was. And by the time they got there, the staff they found there couldn't handle her, and then she was also referred to the hospital where I was working. That is how I came to know about Zara. And I met Zara about 2 days after she was admitted, because she was brought to that hospital where I was on a weekend when we had already knocked off. So when I came back on Monday morning, I was greeted by a very strong stench that was coming from the ward. And when I asked one of the traditional birth attendants that we were working with, she just told me that, oh, it's a young girl there. So I went there and found this girl, and found all the other patients had left the room. They went to sit outside because they could not stand the smell that was coming from her. This was Zara. I encouraged you to make her smile. And this is a portrait of Zara, because apparently it was discovered that she had a fistula. And then when some experts came who were repairing fistulae, when they came to the hospital where I was, Zara was one of those who were found whose fistulae were very complicated, and it was recommended that she goes to Addis Ababa, where there was specialized, where there was a big hospital specializing in repairing obstetric fistulae. And that is Zara's mother. At the time, the last time when I interacted with her, by this time Zara had died. It was a very sad story. She had died. Apparently, the mother told me that when in the process of waiting, because when she was supposed to go to Addis Ababa, war broke out, and then even us who were working there, some of us were evacuated. So I lost contact with her. When I went back to my duty station, I couldn't trace her. I couldn't, the numbers that I had could not go through. And then until much later, when there was another fistula campaign, I tried to trace her. Fortunately, through communication and, using the mobile phone, I found someone who was able to link me to the mother. And then that is when the mother told me that she had died. She had fallen pregnant again while she was still having that fistula in the village, and she didn't access any medical care. She never went to the facility for any checkups. And when the pregnancy was about 28 weeks, one day she just started bleeding, and she bled, and they didn't decide to take her to the hospital. She bled until she lost that baby, and eventually she herself collapsed and died. It was very sad for me, because it was something that could be helped. Zara was one of those women who could have benefited perhaps from the repair of fistula, and it was what happened to her was something that could be, that could be avoided with the. All right, I was saying the information that I gathered was by way of one-to-one interview. For example, the day I reported for work and found this girl in that situation, I first of all attended to her, took her for a bath, and then cleaned her up. And then I informed the doctor to come and review her. She was reviewed and put on antibiotics. But unfortunately, you know, they had come from a long way. They didn't even have relatives. So they didn't, and the drugs that were ordered on that day were not available in the pharmacy. So we just had to, I had to get a few people to help me to donate some money to go and buy the medication for her, which was done. And even to buy a few things like food, they didn't even have food. And whatever else that could be, that could help them. And also the information was based on clinical observation, what was happening to her, and through interaction, in this case with herself and her mother. At 2054, deaths per 100,000 deaths. These results are still considered the highest maternal mortality rate in the world. This figure is based on a survey that was done in 2010. And I'm sure by now there must be some other, results coming up. Maternal deaths occurring due to pregnancy and childbirth-related complications may be underreported. Why I'm saying so is because in this case, even in this case of this young lady that I'm talking about, I would not even have known that she had even died had I not made that effort to try to locate her or locate the mother. So it means there are so many other deaths that might be occurring because no one is able to report them. And in fact, even on that day when I reported and found her, I checked in the admission book, her name was not appearing there. I checked in the delivery register, the name was not appearing there because the people that we were working with were not able to write, especially English. They were trained how to deliver using the Arabic language. So the registers that we were using were in English. No one had even recorded that birth. So you can see that a lot more deaths might be occurring, and then they are not reported because there is no information. And also these deaths are largely preventable through timely identification, early referral, and access of quality adequate medical interventions. In this case, Zara never even went for any single visit of antenatal care. She never received anything, any checkup. She just went into labor while at the village, and a traditional birth attendant was called, attended to her until it was apparent that she was not going to give birth normally. That's when the decision to take her to the nearest facility, which is also kilometers away from the village where she was. And sometimes it's due to the delays at 3 levels. Level 1 is delay. The level 1 delay is indecision to seek care. And what I discovered while I was there was that, like in her case, she was not in a position to decide to seek care. But elderly people and in her family were the ones who were supposed to decide to do that. Level 2 delay is delay in reaching care. And in this case, like I've said, the nearest facility was very far away from the village where she was. So anything might have happened on the way to delay them reaching there. And at level 3, we have delay in receiving adequate health care. For example, in this case, Zara got to the nearest health facilities after struggling, and then they could not handle her there because she had obstructed labor. So a decision had to be made to refer her now to the referral hospital where I was. So you can see that delays can be at 3 levels. Early marriages also are contributing to maternal deaths. I mean, in this case, Yara was only 13 years old. These were my references. And the conclusions, women, including young girls like Zara, die from preventable complications due to lack of access to safe birth, especially in hard-to-reach areas. And use of technology does help in communication, but can fail sometimes where conditions do not favor their use. Like, for example, during war, most people were not able to use their mobile phones, and perhaps because they had to go and charge them from somewhere else, and they had to walk there. And during insecurity, people usually their movements are restricted. Technology is important and can be used at various stages of access to safe birth. In this case, we saw that by use of mobile phone, I was able to communicate, and by use of delivery forceps, Zara's baby was delivered even if it was a macerated stillborn. And then, in my opinion, I think formation of various women support groups in rural communities would really benefit these people who go through such complications. And then I believe that targeting the village headmen and the village chiefs are the first champions of change, and whistleblowers would help. Because once the village headmen and the chiefs, if you manage to get them on your side, then it will be very easy for them to help you to disseminate information, important information.